This is a lot more people than's usually at Prague HackNight. Hi. Okay, great. So we have 3 lightning talks from implementers who've done direct outreach using SMS messaging here to talk to you tonight via robo-texting, peer-to-peer, and you guys peer-to-peer too, right? Peer-to-peer. And then we're going to have 2 live demos. Twilio is going to walk us through how to use Twilio, which will help all the software engineers in the room. You can go build your app at the end of this talk, right? That's what we're doing? Correct. Great. And then the other live demo will be Hero. And then we're going to have like field reports from Hustle and Relay, they're both text messaging apps. They're going to tell us what things we haven't already talked about that cool people are doing in the field. Okay, that's it. We're going to get started. That's the lay of the land. Anybody have any questions? Yes, great.
Hello. So first off, thank you to ThoughtWorks and Progressive HackNight and also Sonya for having us. We really appreciate it. I'm Allie Monck, and I've been interning at the New York City Council's Public Technology Division over this summer, and it's been a really great experience. So if you aren't really sure what we do, we're basically like this digital team that works to have these nice little campaigns, both on social media and beyond, which encourage the diverse communities of New York City to be involved in the conversations about technology. So a few highlights about what we've done is we released Council 2.0, which allowed us to do a lot of other interesting projects. So our website is completely redone. It's a lot nicer and prettier and easier to use. We've implemented SMS services, which Joyce will talk about in a few minutes. We have done participatory budgeting, and we also used a lot of digital platforms to make that better. We have done a hackathon based on constituents' databases, which was also really interesting. And most recently, we have done rapid response labs, which I've been able to take a part of, and that's been really exciting for me, which is where we've taken activist organizations and we've had them explain how they use technology to further their activism. So, Joyce, take it away.
Thanks. I think. Hi guys, my name is Joyce and I implement tech programs for the New York City Council. I work under the speaker who was elected as speaker in 2014, and she is actually termed out at the end of the year. So we at the council are in a very, very sort of interesting space in terms of thinking about the work that we've done in the past 4 years to improve transparency, accountability, and access to the different kinds of work that we do, as well as thinking about what we can do to move forward and encourage new council members to take part in that work. So a little background, I guess. I wanted to backtrack for a second because I think this conversation started with Sonya about having a sort of SMS-themed night at Progressive HackNight because we were doing a rapid response lab event in which we convened groups like the New York Immigration Coalition and other folks who are doing sort of on-the-ground rapid response work around No Ban JFK and other things coming out of the administration and all that organizing, and thinking about ways that we could harness that energy and also improve access to you all and to the community that is really, really interested in tackling these issues. So a little bit of background, obviously the New York City Council, we make the laws governing New York City, and to take a step back, I think one of the concepts that we thought about when we started doing SMS was what the core functions of the council are, which is creating legislation, approving land use applications, so zoning law in New York City, as well as approving the New York City budget, which totals, as of this year, $54 billion, so $84 billion, which is larger than many countries. And of course, we also run 51 council district offices, all in your neighborhood. So that puts us in a sort of unique, centralized, citywide power position, as well as having authority and presence in different neighborhoods to connect people to services. I think from that, we have some soft powers, which are really the things we want to think through in terms of thinking about with SMS. One is mobilizing people, right? We exert a lot of control over people's lives, and so people come to us with a lot of requests and lots of thoughts and feedback. And so we want to capitalize on the fact that we are relevant to people and we want to mobilize people. Connecting people to additional services beyond government, right? We work with lots of different organizations like Hispanic Federation and a lot of the groups in this room, so we want to make sure that people get to the services that they need. Another thing is collecting information and assessing those needs. So that's something that we're looking to explore with SMS. So we really wanted to focus on people before products. That's my boss, the Speaker of the City Council, in our report, Council 2.0, and not really think about innovation for its own sake. A lot of times in government, people get like great ideas, and then they want, I think one thing that people have been writing to us about is putting a calendar feature on our website, and so people think about the design solution before they really think effectively about the problem. And so we wanted to sort of steer that government outlook or local government outlook away from that and think more about who we were trying to reach, especially in Trump times. So I think SMS for us really gave us an opportunity to activate communities, and especially communities that we weren't reaching through traditional channels, social media, email communications, even on-the-ground outreach. I think a lot of the public events, especially when you come with a government face, are hard to trust, right? It's hard also for people to come to the brick-and-mortar city hall that we have and attend a hearing to ready a piece of legislation that might take 5,000 words to put together, right? So thinking about ways that we can reach people who are, in many ways, very intimidated by us, and how we sort of change that face. We wanted to build a fuller constituency to that and experiment with different ways to build trust. So I'm just going to run through some of the projects that we've worked on, because I think really what we're here to do is learn, especially from the development community. I think that we think of this as a report back about the kind of work that we're interested in, and be pushed, perhaps, to do the kind of work that we can do in the future. So for PB, Sonya, you weren't going to get into PB later, right?
I'll talk about it like tiny.
Okay, cool. So Sonya's also on the Participatory Budgeting Steering Committee. Does everybody here know what PB is? Raise hands if you don't. Great. So participatory budgeting was started at the council in 2013, and it allows people to vote on the ways that public capital funds will be spent. So out of 51 council districts, 34 currently do it. And one of the ways that we wanted to help get out the vote, as well as do idea collection, is this. So the council currently uses TextIt. It is an application that uses visual flows so that non-developers and non-programmers can use it. And we, of course, use Twilio as a gateway. And we just do a lot of robo-texting. So we have here an example of ways that we geocoded people's responses so that we can let people know where their vote sites were during the PB process. Another project that we did in 2016 was having people text in so that they can make appointments with the Civilian Complaint Review Board. The CCRB is the sort of non-NYPD governmental entity that people can report police violence and sort of other interactions they have with police officers too. So the form for the CCRB is really long. This poster is really long and wordy, but we partnered with the Summer Youth Employment Program, which employs lots of young people through the summer. Often in those programs, we talk with a lot of the counselors and teachers, and they report that a lot of their young people hop the train or experience other sorts of negative contact with the police and have very few ways to report it. So people can file a complaint in person, which is, I think, a lot easier than calling a hotline or feeling like you have to have all the information beforehand. So texting was a way for us to lower the barrier so that people could report police violence to us. And so in 2016, we introduced some sweeping zoning law changes, mandatory inclusionary housing, and zoning for quality and affordability. As you can see, one of the big things for ZQA was about taking away parking, which made most of New York erupt in flames, but this was because it was a major priority for the administration and many progressive council members, in order to create more affordable housing in the city, we wanted to think about real-time legislative engagement. We knew that this would be a very, very alienating policy. We wanted to think about ways that we could drive engagement and also show people that they could trust us and that they could come and provide information. So the days of those, there were 2 huge hearings last March. There were lines around the block, and one of the things that we did was provide real-time text support. So if folks were stuck in a line, they felt like they didn't know if they were able to get into City Hall, they didn't know what number they were in order to testify, they were really angry, we were able to provide sort of up-to-the-minute support and say, hey, get a security guard if the cops are sort of, being pressured to move people away. So that was really great. And that's it. So come with us if you have questions, and I'm excited to hear from the rest of our speakers.
Okay. I'm going to talk quickly. So I'm the data director for the Civic Engagement Table here in New York State. We're a collaboration of 60 nonprofits that do voter mobilization, voter registration, and issue advocacy. In 2016, I'm going to tell you about the SMS programs that we ran. I'm going to give you the overview, and Fryda's going to talk about, from an implementer's perspective, how it went for Hispanic Federation, one of the many programs that we ran. So we have 60 organizations. These are all the organizations that did work, did SMS outreach for the election. So Hispanic Federation, the Long Island Civic Engagement Table, with New York Communities for Change Make the Road, CHIA, CDC, and Citizen Action, and Clean Air Coalition of Western New York all did direct SMS outreach to people that they had registered to vote. And some of a subset of them did an additional layer of, they texted, including Hispanic Federation, texted people that they had no contact with. So we were able to look at what the engagement looked like if you had no, like a cold contact versus a hot one, which is somebody that you'd already had an interaction with. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then we ran, so this is just like a little, this is how the year went. In April, we did some other experiments, so ignore that. We also did experiments on all of our programs. So we did a treatment and a control, and we were able to see like what impact we actually had. In April, we had a crazy big impact with Hispanic Federation, which we increased turnout of between their treatment and their control of 10.65 percentage points, which is like unheard of. Unheard of. I just want you to really sink that in. We did not see the same results when we did the same experiments for the other primaries or for the general. However, it's like very, very hard to show impact on the general election because like there's so much saturation of stuff happening. So it's hard for you to prove that it was like your program that actually did something. Okay, we'll go. So these are some of the lessons we learned overall from doing peer-to-peer outreach to mobilize voters. We found the asymmetric nature of text messaging so much easier for volunteers to help out with because we didn't have to train every single organizer to know every single possible election protection question that could ever be asked. So all you had to do was have one person in the room or one person available by text message sometimes, Fryda, late at night, who could answer that question. And another, so, oh yeah, and we also were able to use multiple languages. I am gonna shout out to Willis in the back who helped me so hard in translating because we sent our initial scripts with this, do you prefer Spanish or do you prefer Chinese, Korean, Urdu, or Arabic? We sent that in those languages, and then we spoke back and forth with people in every single one of those languages, right? Our organizations organize people of color and low-income communities, particularly single ethnicity communities in the AAPI. So Willis, I was like late night texting with Willis all throughout the election. Woo, it was copy-paste is my best friend. So in our initial, so the way that also being able to text message somebody directly is better than a phone call or even leaving a voicemail is we were able to give them on their phone their polling location and everything, even in that initial message. So if they never wrote us back, they had everything they needed, and we didn't have to trust that they heard us correctly and wrote it down correctly. They had that at their fingertips when they went to vote. We also texted live with people while they were at the polls. So if they were like, oh, this line is so long, I could be like, oh, I know exactly what ED you live in. You can skip that first line, and here's the table you can go to. So that was like super helpful. Oh yeah, on our script we put, do you know where your polling location is and can I count on you to vote? So that if somebody said no, we just assumed they didn't know where their polling location was, and we gave that to them. And then you have the ability, we use Hustle, you have the ability to preload response scripts. I don't recommend doing too many of those because we like our canvassers to actually have control over the voice. But we also shared a Google Sheet of all the beautiful translations that Willis did for us so that at least the most basic questions you get from people, we had those responses in every language as we gathered them from wonderful, wonderful people like Willis. And then we could also follow up with the address of their polling location. We also knew their address, so we could give them like door-to-door handheld instructions, which we did. Okay, Fryda, are you ready to talk about the things that you learned specifically?
Yeah, sounds
Sweet.
good.
Oh,
Cool, and how
no,
much time
not
do I
that
have? No?
Like 2 minutes.
Okay, cool. I work with Hispanic Federation. The context of how we did this program was, well, maybe I'll tell you a little bit about Hispanic Federation. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. We work on several different issue areas, targeting mostly the Latino community, but of course, when you work with Latino, you're going to work with communities of color in general. We have issue areas that we focus on, including immigration, education, economic empowerment, and health. And so we turn to these issue areas a lot of the times when we're doing this kind of work because we can start the conversation that way. So it was 2016. Hispanic Federation had only done like door knocking, robocalling, mailings, and so this was an excellent change for us because robocalling was proven to be ineffective and door knocking was just far too expensive. So in making this transition, we learned a lot of good lessons and hard lessons. So I'll start with the hard lessons first. I just wrote them out right now. People don't know or don't want to know that there's an election at first. A lot of people are actually just, you would think that they would be aware of a primary election in particular, and now that we have our New York City municipal elections, you'd think that they'd have some inkling of an election. A lot of people that we speak to, in particular in our community, are like, what are you talking about? What, next week? No. So it was good that we started a week ahead of time very often, gave them the chance to say, this is the event that we want you to go to, this is why we want you to go to it, this is how you're gonna get there, because we started off by saying, this is your polling location. We didn't give them the polling address from the get-go, but said what the polling location was. So that was another lesson that, transitioning to another lesson that we learned, which was, start by providing them a service, and then they will begin to trust you. We gave them the service of saying, we know this information about you somehow. Like, we, trust us, right? Like, we know where you should go to vote. Here it is, it's on your phone. Let's start the conversation from there. So we didn't have to focus on who they were voting for or what they cared about from the get-go, but we started off with that understanding that, like, there is no way you can make an excuse and not know where your polling location was, because a lot of folks don't know that. A lot of folks would follow up saying, well, I don't have time to vote, so that was a major concern. We were also able to say, no excuse. Like, these are the times, and we'd work with them to be like, we'd help them and be their personal assistant. So another lesson that we learned was, it's the small things, it's not the big things. You'd think you'd have to convince them to care. No, you have to convince them to just find some time in their schedule to go. So you'd think that the approach would be different, but that was the service that we provided. We were the personal assistants, right? So it really helped to switch to their language, definitely, because that helped us build trust, that helped us be better personal assistants. Another thing we learned was that from the get-go, we definitely need organizers to be involved in the creation of these programs, because we know that hustle is amazing, but I know it was initially built to market events and build customer relationships and customer bases, which was not immediately transferable, but we worked on it, right? Because when you're doing organizing, you have a different volunteer every single day. Right? No volunteer wants to do more than 4 hours. And so we'd have to focus on things like switching lists. We also have different people that we're texting in different occasions, people who are constantly opting out of communications. And so we always have to have the perspective of knowing what it's like to actually organize the folks in the room ahead of time, because that should influence the way we work on these programs. So those were the harder lessons. The good lessons we learned was that social pressure works, and so what we defined as social pressure was not being like, you better go, right? It was being like, there's an election, this is where you should go, can I count on you to vote? And then when they said yes, and when we worked out the kinks, we'd also ask them, we'd also let them know, we will be contacting you on the day of the election just to see how it goes. And then we'd follow up. And we imagined that as social pressure because they knew that us, even though we were strangers, were going to be reaching out to them again. And when we did, a lot of the times, we got texts at 6 in the morning being like, all right, I'm heading out, thanks so much. And they take a selfie and they give it to us. And then
They sent us a selfie of their I voted sticker.
yeah, no, We got a ton of those. So another great lesson we learned is a stranger makes an excellent best friend. Okay, so the day after the November election happened, we were their best friend. They were calling us, being like, how could this happen? Because they trusted us somehow. And so that's surprising, a good lesson learned. Another thing is that nonpartisan messaging can work. Nonpartisan messaging in a primary election can turn out people to vote. They don't need to rally behind a particular individual. They just need to find time in their schedule sometimes. And also one last thing that we knew from the beginning, but that we were happy to reinforce, is that Hispanic communities and communities of color love to text. So let's keep texting them, right? So, okay, I think that is mostly it. And thanks to this program, thanks to this pilot, we were inspired to text a ton, tens of thousands of people. We texted 90,000 people in Florida after that. Yeah, all right, so any questions? And I'll take them later. I went way over my time. Thank you.
You're fine. That's it. This is the end. This is just us talking this is me, I think, even talking in Spanish, but even though I don't speak Spanish. And then we have a Willis translation over here. I think that's it. Oh yeah, so these were our results. This is the increase in turnout you can see over there. 21% of the people that we didn't text voted, 32% of the people we did text voted. And then this is this is all the experiments we ran just for Hispanic Federation and their results. I'm done, I made it. Okay, now Twilio is gonna show you the magic of how this happens under the hood.
My name's Greg. I serve on the developer community team at Twilio. I'm sorry for my back to all of you. Instead of talking much about Twilio, I thought I'd just kind of show you how it works. Hopefully this picks it up. So most things with Twilio on the SMS side obviously start with a phone number. So I'm just going to come in here and search for a 718 phone number. And I'm going to buy the number. The phone number is going to cost $1 a month. And you can see we have numbers in a whole bunch of different area codes. Unfortunately, not 212 numbers, because those go for $500 on the black market, and they've been out of stock for those for quite a while. Much to my chagrin, I just moved here a year ago. But I just bought a 718 number here. I live in Brooklyn, and I'm going to write just a couple lines of code here to build an autoresponder. So I'm just going to put here. This is auto. I'll make this big for y'all. Can y'all see that in the back? Okay, a little bit. We'll see what happens here. This is going to be interactive. I need you all to pull out your phones, open up your SMS app. In just a second, I'm going to have you text this. And so when you send that text, Twilio is going to go look at this code right here for instructions on what to do next. And I'm just going to say, thanks for coming to Progressive HackNight. All right. And that's it. You can see it's just basically 5 lines of code. I'm going to click Create. I want to make this small again. I'm going to save my phone number configuration here. And once that's saved, if y'all could drop a text. Let's do this. Let's keep with the theme of the night. You want to text your favorite emoji to this number. It's 718-866-3784. 718-866-3784. And give me a shout out if you get anything back. You got it? All right, cool. All right, so one more time for the folks in the room, 718-866-3784. So that's how, just 2 minutes, even if you've never written a line of code before, you can buy a phone number, it'll cost you $1, you can build an autoresponder. So this is super useful for getting information to people in the field, right? You can deliver URLs, you can deliver pictures, right? And so this is super, super useful. But lots of other stuff you can do with Twilio too. So for the folks who do write some code, I'm going to write just a little bit of code in Python here. And what I'm going to do is use our Python helper library that will connect to our API. And once I use our helper library, and if you are into Ruby or you're into PHP or .NET, whatever your jam is, we have a helper library for that. I'm going to create a new client to interact with that, and I'm going to pass to it my account SID, my auth token, basically my username and password. Then I'm going to reach into my account, and I'm going to grab a list of all of the messages that have been sent to that phone number that I just bought. right? The phone number that y'all just texted. And then I'm going to iterate through each message. And with each message, I'm going to print the body of the message that y'all typed in. So this is going to be your emoji. And I am going to then use that client to create a new message. And that message is going to be to the number that you sent your message from. It's going to be from that same Twilio phone number. And then I'll give it a body, and I'll say hello again. And then I'm also going to pass a media URL. And this media URL is going to be the most important Twilio project that I have ever worked on. And that's the time that I taught my dog to text me selfies. And so this is how you can have folks subscribe to your list, have their phone number, and then blast out text messages to them at a later date, right? But I'll show this real quick here. One other thing you can do with Twilio, you can create calls to. So we've had a lot of folks doing this year to call Congress, right? And so similar thing here. I'm going to send a message to the number that you sent your message from. It's going to be from my Twilio number. Oops, let's get the phone number instead here. All right. And then I'm going to pass in a URL, and that URL is going to give instructions on what to do when you answer your phone. All right, and because we're going to call y'all in just a second. And in order to do that, I'm just going to create a new instruction set, just like we did before. We're going to call this one call, and we are going to have a response, but instead of sending back a message, we're going to dial a number. So the number we're going to dial here is going to be this Call Congress hotline that a Twilio developer worked with. And when you call this number here, it will ask you to enter your zip code and be connected to your 3 reps. So they process tens of thousands of calls through this thing here. So I'm going to dial that number. I'm going to create what we call a TWIML bin, just to store instructions, TWIML instructions for Twilio. And then I'm going to pass that into my Python script. And we will then run this. And let's fire away. All right, and so we'll do Python, and we'll run that script, calls.py. And we should, hopefully, see some emojis here. And then if your phones ring, answer it and throw it up on speakerphone. I see we have some poop. I didn't notice that sticker in the back, unfortunately. And then, yeah, go ahead and answer it, throw it up on speakerphone. And you would have the option, if you so chose, to punch in your zip code and be connected to your 3 congressional representatives. All right, so again, my name is Greg. I will be around somewhere if y'all want any help getting started, if you want some free credits, if you just want help, working through ideas, let me know. This is honestly like one of the most gratifying parts of the job is working with folks like y'all. So let me know. Would love to help out. Thank you.
So my name's Josh. I have a product that's called Marriage Hero. The name comes from where it originates or descends from, which was the marriage campaign in Washington. It's a volunteer management tool. And so one of the most recent uses of this tool was in the British Columbia Canadian provincial elections, where the New Democratic Party used it, and they pushed the BC Liberals out of power for the first time in 16 years. Which is really good news, and now there's a NDP and Green government in place. So one of the key things that Hero tries to solve is the lack of a personal relationship or personal connection between the organizer and the volunteer. If many of you have ever volunteered for a campaign, what you'll often find is that you'll sign up on a website somewhere, you'll get a call from an organizer, and then you'll get an email back and forth, but then they will constantly move people across different places in the campaign. So you're talking to Julie one day, and then you're talking to Vincent, and you don't really know who your organizer is, and then you fall through the cracks. Same thing often happens where they're working out of spreadsheets, they're not keeping track of things, and so then basically they have you scheduled for the wrong time, and then they have these shared email accounts where you don't really know who you're talking to, like who's voter help 6, because there's 10 of them in there. Right, so what Hero does is it builds a unified persona for a given organizer within a campaign that has SMS and email. And once you attach to that, you're basically dealing with that persona no matter what. So if you have a phone and you feel like it, go ahead and text the word hero to that number. And that's going to give you an example of how this works. So while you're doing that, so here's kind of how things happen in Hero, which is that SMS number and an email address are a virtual persona that is on the system. And so any emails or SMSs that go between that persona and the volunteer are kept within the system, but also relayed to the actual organizer's personal Gmail or email account, right? So they can go ahead and respond either through the app or from their individual Gmail, and it will be basically relayed back and forth. And if they get fired or get moved, then that persona can just be reseated onto a different human, right? And all that state is kept, so like you don't lose all that history. Sorry, I forgot all of you over here. Okay, so what you'll see, for those of you who have done it, is the first thing you'll do is you'll get an actual real calendar invitation from the organizer persona. You'll also be getting a text message, but on this one, if you click accept or decline, it's going to capture that, and that'll also be reflected back in Van if you're operating Hero with Van. And in order to allow a very customized workflow, earlier you saw that text-it diagram. That's perhaps a little more user-friendly. This is a little more developer-friendly. Whereas if you know some JavaScript, you can write a JavaScript function which will set which keywords Hero will respond to and how it will change the state of the attendance record for a volunteer, as everything's very templated. And of course, if you just respond back off script or independent of an event, you can just send chats directly to that organizer. And so that would show up in my email inbox. And from my own Gmail, I can just hit reply. It'll be bounced up and down through Hero, and the volunteer never knows my own personal email or my own personal phone number. All that's kept in the middle. And for synchronization, I also run OSDI, which is the Progressive Data Standard. So Hero is built with OSDI from the ground up. So it can run pretty seamlessly in conjunction with NGP Van or with Action Network or Call Hub for phone dialing. So like in a setup, for the folks of you who have done this demo, not only would your information be pushed into Hero, it's also going to be in my Action Network. It's also going to be in my campaign in Van. All right. Questions? Yeah. Well, I have, oh, sorry.
Oh, you do have a minute left.
I have a minute left.
I'm going to donate it to the end.
Yeah, I'll yield my time.
That's how donating works, right?
Right, you get it back somehow.
I'm like pretty sure that's how it works.
Okay, so my name is Elizabeth Haynes. I'm one of the founders of Open Progress. One of the things that drove Open Progress to be created was my work as a super volunteer on the James Thompson campaign in Kansas 4. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with that particular special election. James Thompson ran to replace Mike Pompeo, who had been nominated to be CIA director. James ran in a district that the last time a Republican won there, they won by 34 points. When James ran about 5 months later, James only lost by 7 points. So he made back 27 points in about 5 months. We did a whole bunch of stuff as volunteers for James because James didn't have any money. But the biggest thing that we did that we think made among the biggest impact was we ran a persuasion campaign with text. Many of you are used to having people ask you to text voters on a peer-to-peer basis to tell them information about where to vote, when to vote, what time to vote. We got to that, but we started first by actually going deep into our voter base, Republicans, independents, very loosely identified Democrats. We sent out 200,000 texts between the beginning and the end, where we actually just asked people, what did they care about? What were their issues? What did they want James to know? And we opened up a conversation. So we would go back and forth with people. Not everybody wanted to engage with us, but we would go back and forth with folks, including people that we didn't change their minds. They didn't vote for James, but they left the conversation respecting him, saying that they respected him, and that they were going to tell their friends to pay attention, including their friends who would vote for James. So we really worked hard to change the conversation, and we think that text messaging can actually really do that. We've now taken that model to another 3 races as volunteers, and we have a whole texting toolkit that Open Progress has created and is available for free to anyone who wants to build a volunteer-led texting program. So you can grab it off of our website. It's got everything you need from soup to nuts, 20 different documents to get you up and running, including how to work with your field organizer and your campaign manager. We've now taken it to a rural district race for Legislative District 7 in Washington State, a woman named Karen Hardy. Karen has now texted her entire universe twice using all volunteers with less than 2 weeks of setup and stand-up. We've now taken it to a city council race in Wichita, Kansas for Brandon Johnson, whose vote is tonight. Brandon started wanting only get out the vote, and when we started doing get out the vote, no one knew that there was an election. Like no clue. And they definitely didn't know who Brandon was. So we quickly pivoted into running a persuasion campaign. We've now done all of Brandon's universe twice. But the biggest thing that we're doing right now is we're actually standing this up for a statewide outreach in the state of Virginia on behalf of Mark Herring, who's running for Attorney General. So when I say statewide, I don't mean a few thousand texts. We have a universe of 300,000 people that we want to listen to. So for anybody who's got an hour or a few hours and you actually just want to listen and you want to meet people where they are, which is what issue do you want Mark to care about for you? Come join our campaign. We've got plenty of text to send, but one of the things that we're learning, for instance, is that most of the things that those candidates are talking about are not the things that people want them to talk about. So we're going to feed that information back and try to actually help proactively change the conversation. Because this is where, when we talk about deep canvassing in person, this is deep canvassing for text. And we're going to try really hard to change the way that we engage so that it's not just transactional, but it's also very much about engagement. We've used Relay. I have not personally used Hustle for this because I was out of the country when some people did, but we've also used Hustle for this. We find that it's pretty platform agnostic. It needs 3 things. It needs volunteers who are willing to do the texting. We think that it needs what we call a campaign wiki, which is really just a very long Google Doc with all of the candidates' issues and their answers to those issues that anyone can then search and get the candidate's answer in their voice. This is really important. We want the texters to be using their voice, but we want also to be reflecting the actual position of the candidate. And then thirdly, it needs it needs a Slack channel. I didn't think it needed a Slack channel. It needs a Slack channel. And so if you can put those 3 things together, we make it really easy on We Volunteer, the software through Open Progress, to actually stand up everything you need for that event, get the word out, start getting signups, and have everything be in one place for folks to get started.
Hey everybody, my name's John. I work with Relay. I want to talk a little bit about just what Elizabeth talked about, which is using volunteers to power your peer-to-peer texting program. So a couple days ago, I was making breakfast, and my phone buzzed, and it was a text message from my grandmother, and this text message contained not 1, not 2, but 3 different emojis. And my grandmother is 93 years old. She's like, I'm trying to get this right. She's older in years than she is heavy in pounds. So she's like a little old lady. And she's sending me texts with all these emojis. And it just underlines this thing that's, I guess, like an obvious fact, which is that texting in a relatively short period of time has become the dominant way that people communicate with friends and family. And so when it comes to engaging people for your organization or your campaign, doing a peer-to-peer texting program powered by volunteers just makes a ton of sense. So I'm going to quickly zoom out and just make sure everyone understands what we're talking about when we're talking about peer-to-peer texting. So whether it's Relay or Hustle or another application, a lot of the features are pretty similar. Basically, you upload a list of people you want to text. You create some personalized message templates, and you can merge in as much personal info that you might have about them. So you definitely have their name and phone number, but you might also know the last time they voted or where they live, and you can create custom messages based on that. you assign batches of messages to senders. And so if you have a relatively small campaign, you might just have a couple senders. If you're sending out 300,000 messages, I imagine you have a pretty big crew sending those out. But we need more. Sign up. Then after you've assigned those, all of your senders engage in these one-on-one conversations in a super efficient way at a very high scale. And they do that through a web app, or you can do it on a tablet or a phone. It is sort of platform agnostic. Why use volunteers? Number one reason, honestly, is you need to. Most organizations, most campaigns, they do not have the capacity to send out messages at a very high volume. It simply doesn't become a priority. For me, this reason is actually more persuasive. I don't know if you guys have found this, but recipients tend to be more receptive to messages that come from people who are more like them. So if I'm getting a message from some junior staffer at a political campaign, they ask me to come down to the local office to volunteer, that's like a relatively easy message for me to brush off. But if I get a text message from my neighbor and she's asking me to help her make our city better, that's a much harder message to ignore. And so we find higher conversion rates when you actually are using volunteers for your program. Texting also provides super meaningful work to people that might have mobility issues or to people that might have social anxiety. So I know there's a lot of developers and technologists in the room. Can I get a show of hands for people who have canvassed and gone door to door? That's pretty good. I'm guessing for a lot of the hands that haven't gone up, it's because that sounds like a nightmare, knocking on doors of strangers. So texting is much more approachable and less intimidating. And then finally, volunteers just love texting. It's super easy. They can do it from the comfort of their home. They can easily fit it into kind of the rhythm of their lives. Training, you basically covered most of this. You don't need much in the way of training. A lot of these platforms have been built from the ground up with kind of user friendliness in mind, but it is often useful to have a video, so an on-demand training. We have one that's like 7 minutes long. A lot of campaigns create them for themselves, and this is how you actually bring folks into the fold and get them to actually start sending messages. All right, so you've got folks who are on board who are going to be sending text messages for your campaign or your organization. We find it to be a good idea to have a little bit of quality control, to make people take a little quiz just so they understand the basics of what they're doing and how to use the program. Writing a frequently asked questions document, in general, this is just a big, sprawling Google Doc, and it actually works remarkably well. And then finally, enabling person-to-person support. So you touched upon this a little bit, but you can bring folks together in person for text banking. A lot like phone banking, this is getting everyone around one table. These are volunteers with Color of Change, texting around the last election. Super fun. You bring snacks, you share stories, you show people like funny little messages you've received. It's great. And also using Slack to enable horizontal peer-to-peer support, even when there isn't a staffer on hand to answer questions. You can have folks supporting one another. And it's Slack, so there's all of the GIFs. People love GIFs or GIFs? GIFs? Yeah? GIFs? The GIFs have it. All right. All is not lost. All right, this is going a little off the rails. I have 15 seconds left. Okay, that's basically it. So if you guys have questions, you want to do a demo, you want to get set up with a free trial, come talk to me. I'm happy to walk you through it.
So we kind of signed on last minute to this thing, so we didn't have a presentation, but we're Hustle, and we do peer-to-peer text messaging at scale, and we're happy to answer questions.
Yeah, a little bit of background about the people who we work with. So we came to be around the time of the 2016 election when we started realizing that there was this need to reach out to people in a way that they understand, in a very humanized way. People are getting frustrated. They don't check their email inboxes anymore because it's just tons of automated content that they know is not meant for them. What we realized is that people, when they felt like they were cared about and that they felt like this was a real person on the other end of the line, actually would do the things that they want, that they really would want in the end, when they would want to volunteer for people that were bringing about the change that they wanted to see in the world. So really, we felt like it was a win-win and that we could make a lot of impact. And so Hustle came to be, and we worked with a lot of campaigns. We worked with Bernie, and we worked with Clinton. We worked with a lot of different organizing communities, like if you've ever volunteered for Planned Parenthood, if you volunteered for different organizations, you might have even used our product. And so we were really excited to work with progressive causes, which are doing things that we all want to see happen in the world. So.
And we also work with unions, and so we've been working in the volunteer space as well as with organizations that have more stable texters. So I think that we've actually created different strategies for organizations that are using volunteers versus ones that are using union reps and things like that. And I'm happy to talk through the intricacies of that. Cool. And I don't know, maybe something that was alluded to but wasn't said explicitly during these presentations is that text messaging is the most accessible medium to communicate with, and we've really found that relationships matter. So it's not getting reached out to by a human is great. Getting reached out to by a human many times over time, getting to know that person is incredibly meaningful. And so we focus on getting those texts out, but also keeping those relationships over time and nourishing.
Awesome. Okay. Annie.
If we can leave you guys up here actually for a minute, we're gonna get to the breakout groups portion. And so what we're gonna do is we have two types of breakout groups here. So discussion groups and then working groups. So discussion groups